Compass Mining makes Bitcoin mining accessible to everyone. Start mining in as little as 48 hours with our turnkey hardware, online and mining directly to your Bitcoin wallet within 2 business days. Find out more at compassmining.io and get started now. Hey miners, welcome back to the channel McNallie Money, the new home of power mining analysis. Well, here we have it. Anthony Power and I have a day we've been dreaming of, you guys. Miners across the board are in the green. TeraWulf leading the pack, so to speak, up near 20% at some points during this morning's trading. This is all on the back of a big announcement from the Fed yesterday, cutting rates at the top end of the expected range in the 0.5% or 50 basis point region. We've got a lot to talk about in today's presentation, all of this and more. Plus we got news from some of our key miners we cover on the channel. Before we get into it though, take a second, you guys, smash the like button. It's 100% free to do. Huge help to myself and the channel. Anthony loves it. If you're not already subscribed, McNallie Money, feel free to join and let us know in the comment section below how your portfolio is looking today, how you're feeling about the Bitcoin mining segment overall, and your outlook for the final few months of 2024. Now, with that being said, let's get into today's video. Okay, guys, that's right. We're back Thursday morning. Huge morning across the board for the Bitcoin mining sector, really on the backs of some big moves we've seen overnight in the price of Bitcoin. Anthony, I was up all night. I was texting you as we started to cross those milestones, 60,000, 61, 62,000. We're running a little bit late this morning, Anthony. We were actually working on our Wulf howls prior to this. TeraWulf was up near 20% this morning. Obviously a very strong showing from the Wulf pack. Soluna has now surpassed them, Anthony, at 16% at the time this screenshot was taken, and a number of other miners we'll talk about in today's video, but really a breath of fresh air for the entire sector. We've been talking about hash price. We've been talking about increasing difficulty. So nice to see something going in the right direction for this segment. And really all thanks to our friends at the Fed and that 50 basis point cut we saw yesterday afternoon.
Yeah, no, it's good to see today. We've seen Bitcoin price rally over 5%, over 63,000 as we're speaking now, which is a well needed, because we've been talking for podcast after podcast about hash price for miners. Has been as low as $34. It was just over $40 earlier this week. So with this increase in Bitcoin, it'll impact the hash price well in a positive way. So that's good. And the mining stocks themselves, we know they're correlated with the Bitcoin price. So we've seen some of the miners today, and you've already mentioned the two big movers in terms of TeraWulf and Soluna. And in fact, looking at the ones that we have on the platform, it's a green day for all those miners today. Yeah, very, very positive news, very welcomed. And just what we need as we're getting close to the end of the week.
Yeah, it certainly is. So if we set the stage from a macro perspective here, Anthony, we've got the federal election coming up in November. Interestingly enough, Satoshi, in his wisdom, synced up the halving cycle with the US presidential cycle. So we've got this phenomenon where we're going into an election cycle. We've had the halving this year. Obviously now government in the United States, really around the world, they're looking at interest rates. They're starting to cut interest rates. And generally what we see going into election cycles is governments try and reduce rates, stimulate the economy. We see quantitative easing and really try to get people feeling good about their bank accounts, their mortgages, their interest rates, etc. I would expect this trend is going to continue. That's exactly what we heard from the Fed yesterday. We were expecting maybe a 25 basis point cut, Anthony, and they came out with a 50 basis point cut. So initially, Bitcoin, the market in general, reacted very well. Then it kind of trailed off. We were really going back and forth, uncertain how the day would end. Ended up being a red day for most of the miners. And then lo and behold, this morning, they are out of the gates strong and up across the board. Do you think this is going to continue here, Anthony? Do you think we'll see a reversal, or is this fiscal policy and the interest rate cuts the catalyst we've been waiting for here for the new rally?
Well, it certainly helps having the cut. Bear in mind, Europe reduced their rates by 0.25, and the UK decided to wait another month before they'll make a decision. So the UK felt it wasn't warranted this month, so they meet on a monthly basis as well and determine what the next actions are. And interest rates, the base rate in the UK is like 5%, so we're waiting for a much needed cut in those interest rates. But yeah, I mean, we've talked about the inflows into ETFs and other factors that will be affecting Bitcoin. So there's been some positive news this week. We saw, we had sort of 8 or 9 days of red days in terms of outflows for Bitcoin for the ETFs. Now we've seen some positive days, 3 or 4 on the bounce. There's two of those were like significant purchases of Bitcoin, far more than's produced on a daily basis, and so that helps the story to take it forward. But I mean, we've said before, as quickly as Bitcoin goes up, it can reverse, and so people just need to have an open mind with the volatility. But I still believe we're getting closer to the start of this bull cycle because following 2020, 2021, it was towards the end of 2020 that it started. We're getting towards the end of 2024 now, so if the cycle's every 4 years, we're certainly coming into that bracket now, and who knows where. Let's get one of our technical analysts on the program soon and see if we can ease some sort of like a look at what's going to happen over the next few weeks and few months from their perspective, because that would be interesting for everyone to know.
Yeah, it certainly would. And I wanted to touch on two kind of themes or topics we've mentioned on the channel before, Anthony, but starting to become more relevant right now. Game theory. So we talked about this yesterday in relation to nation states getting involved. The principle of game theory is if enough people start to buy into Bitcoin or really any system, fiat currency or whatever, it starts to intrinsically create value. More and more people want involved, which drives the price up. And the ball continues to roll. So we're starting to see that. That's also known as FOMO, I guess, in the retail community, Anthony. And what's interesting, we've talked about the ETFs, the importance of the ETFs, but you got to think at a retail level here, you guys. If you and I, Anthony, are new to Bitcoin, we go out, we buy the ETF, and it goes down for 8 days. We're probably not going to highly recommend that to our friends. If we buy the ETF yesterday and we're already up 5% today, you can bet I'm going to be telling all my buddies about that this weekend. I think we're going to start to see that phenomenon, that FOMO we saw in the last cycle, because despite the progression we've seen in the Bitcoin mining space, the interest in this sector and the sentiment in this sector is near all-time lows right now.
Yeah, I agree then. And actually, it's a human trait in terms of when people are discussing stocks, or even in terms of like when they're gambling. You don't always hear about the low days, but they're always quite happy to tell you when they did really well. And so, I think that's quite right. I mean, if people have done well this year in Bitcoin, in the mining stocks, they're more than happy to tell everyone. But I bet you there's a few people out there who still got stock going back to 2021 that's still feeling a little bit of the pain from when Bitcoin price went through the bear cycle. And some of these stocks that we talk about probably need to get sort of 80% higher to even get close to break even for some of those people. So there's a big way to go. And when I say 8% higher, if the stock at the moment represents 20% of where they were, I mean, it's probably got to like 4x, 5x to even to get money back. Because I know people who bought some stocks during that period which you talked about, and there was a lot of fear of missing out. People were buying certain mining stocks, and then those mining stocks have really come back down to earth a little bit, and we're starting now from a fresh. But if people didn't sell, they're sitting on some sort of like unrealized losses, and they're hopeful that this bull cycle, it might get them back to where they need to be. So yeah, it's a human trait to sort of like, everyone talks about when they're doing really well and they've doubled their money in a certain stock, but at the same time highlight the ones that you don't do so well in.
Just like you and your golf game, Anthony. I think you've rarely told me the score of your matches over there. Anywho, circling in on the miner companies, Anthony, you're quite right in saying many of the Bitcoin miners, specifically the pure plays, have retreated quite a bit from highs this year. If you think about Riot, CleanSpark, Marathon, one of them that has bucked that trend is Core Scientific. They're flirting with 52-week highs. I think they did hit one yesterday, really bolstered by that HPC AI contract with CoreWeave, which we've covered extensively on the channel. So we don't need to go into detail extensively there, but one question, Anthony, they had that extension on the additional 118 megawatts. I'm curious to get your thoughts there. And then maybe we can talk about a few of these other top movers on the list today.
So yeah, so the balance of power available for the HPC services from the initial 500 megawatts that Core Scientific allocated is 118. I'd expect some sort of an announcement in the next week or so to say that one's been, agreed. And the reason I say that is today in the UK, CoreWeave have announced the fact that they're wanting to invest £1 billion in the UK in HPC services over there. So they're not stopping spending money. They've got a client in the US that they already have a contract with. So Core Scientific are already delivering HPC hosting services for CoreWeave. They're already doing it now. Forget the sites that are being ready for early next year. They're delivering it now. So there's an actual relationship there. And so for Adam and the team to grant an extra 30 days, that's an interesting position. I think the likelihood is that CoreWeave will probably take the rest of the megawatts.
Yeah, I'm tending to lean that way as well, Anthony. I think your analysis there is accurate. The other few miners I wanted to talk about here, TeraWulf, Soluna, and Bit Digital. So similar to CoreWeave, TeraWulf, their name has been in a lot of discussions about a hyperscaler deal, hyperscaler announcement. Paul Prager's been alluding to something coming down the pipe. This one moving again in a massive way today. I can remember, I want to say 6, 7, 8 days now, Anthony, where TeraWulf has been up anywhere from 10, 15, 20%. A lot of those days, other miners aren't really moving. I feel like something is brewing here. Are you getting that same read?
Yeah, I really do, and we've talked about the fact that if there's nothing brewing, I can't see how their share price is moving the way it's moving at the moment. So, last time I looked, it was about $4.62. That gives them a market capitalization just under 1.8 billion, and they've got sort of 10 exahash, and they've got a reasonably good energy price. It's just over 4 cents a kilowatt hour blended rate because they have the 2 cents at Nautilus, and they've got a slightly higher rate at Lake Mariner. So if you look at the blended rate for that power, it's just over 4 cents. And they put these figures in each monthly update. So if you're unsure about energy costs for TeraWulf, it's all transparent every month. And then look at IREN. So IREN have got over 18 exahash with the most efficient fleet of miners in North America at the moment. And their market capitalization is $250 million less at 1.5 billion. So part of me is scratching my head to understand, what are the markets seeing in TeraWulf? And the only thing that really stands out is the fact that, they're probably close to announcing some sort of a HPC deal, or one of these sort of like mega deals, I think, and not necessarily, a small deal in terms of, small facility. They've certainly got the power, they've certainly got the space to develop something along the lines that probably Core Scientific have done. Because believe you me, every miner wants that deal with that Core Scientific brought to the market. And even if they don't say it, if Jason Les had a call from CoreWeave tomorrow, he'd be turning around and saying, tell me what site wants to put the HPC on, because he'd deliver it. And the same with every other miner. And we know that, Matthew Schultz has been putting out tweets, and Zach's been, talking about, from CleanSpark's perspective, they're not into HPC. They're just looking at Bitcoin mining. But they've got a duty to shareholders to say they need to look at everything in that space. They're all data center managers, effectively. So if they can deliver a service that brings in a really good rate of return and doesn't have bull and bear cycles like the Bitcoin price does, and they can stand up and say, well, just put out your profits that you've achieved through the last 3 years and say, was that sufficient for shareholders and their expectation? And it probably wasn't. And then say, well, look at what HPC is bringing to the table and look at the core scientific deal. Do you want a bite of that? I think they'd all be jumping at it. So they might turn around behind closed doors, or when they're when they're open doors and say one way. But I think internally, Jason and Zach would eat up a core scientific deal if it came along their way.
Compass Mining is your trusted partner in Bitcoin mining. Whether you're investing in one machine or thousands, our customizable solutions are tailored to meet your needs. We are your experts in Bitcoin mining, offering a platform where individuals and businesses can purchase hardware, host machines, and access a range of ancillary Bitcoin mining services. We also specialize in large-scale site development and data center operations. Discover more at compassmining.io and see how we can power your success today. And honestly, I think any tech CEO, regardless if they're in Bitcoin mining or not, would eat up a deal like that, or really most companies in general. Yeah. Now, the other thing I wanted to say, Anthony, we haven't talked about this in a while, but keep in mind, you guys, with TeraWulf, super high insider ownership. I think last I checked, they were in the neighborhood of about 40%. So that's really important when you start to see big share price moves. There's a lot less of the float that's available to be traded. A lot of times you're going to see more volatility there to the up or downside. So one thing I wanted to bring up that we haven't touched on in quite some time. Now, Anthony, in addition to TeraWulf, Soluna, they came out with some great news this week. We covered that earlier in our live stream yesterday, the Rosa project. We can touch on that again, but they've actually surpassed TeraWulf today, up 16% at the time this was put together. So a phenomenal showing from John and team there, really reacting very favorable to that new, I believe, 187 megawatt project.
Yeah, no, it's another good announcement from Soluna, and we've talked about this company time and time again. Market capitalization, even at today's share price, just under $20 million, and they're delivering 5 or 6 projects. They've got a self-mining business, but it's not a big business in terms of the big miners that we talk about. It isn't the smallest self-mining business that belongs to SATO technology. But Soluna's in that sort of 600, 700, 800 petahash range. So close to where the likes of Gryphon and DMG are situated at the moment. But that's just part of their business, their hosting business, which is profitable because they have one of the lowest energy costs of all the miners in North America. It's about 3%, 3 cents a kilowatt hour, sorry, not 3%. And so, a great hosting business, more than double the amount of hash rate in their hosting business. And then actually, they've got a number of projects on top of that. So they have, they're just breaking ground with Dorothy 2. They got $30 million in advance for that project. They've got Project Catty, 166 megawatts. They've got this latest Project Rosa, 187 megawatts. So they're not thinking small anymore now. They're getting bigger projects put together, and they'll parcel these projects and show, the potential there. And they're looking at, still looking at either self-mining, hosting, or AI in any of these spaces. So combination or any one of the 3 types of service. And so it keeps them well positioned. They're running 2 projects at the moment, actually physically running 2 AI projects, one at 1 megawatt, one at 2 megawatts. So, that they're doing everything in their business. And the other thing I like about Soluna being a small one, I do like the infrastructure that they use for their mining sites. I think it looks really good, and I like the renders that they use for the AI facilities as well. They look pretty smart as well. So if you've not seen any of these, again, go on the website, do a bit of research on Soluna. You'd be pleasantly surprised. Listen to some of the podcasts with John Belazaire, CEO. I'm sure we'll get him on again soon, and he can talk us through some of these latest projects and tell us from a timestamp when they're likely to be break ground and getting to sort of like revenues, etc., etc.
I had a nickel for every time you brought up the Soluna render of the data center, Anthony. You loved that one. Anthony thought it was an AI generated image. It was so so sleek and futuristic. And what's so great about Soluna, Anthony, you just mentioned this, their business model is so unique compared to the other miners. If you think about how many solar and wind farms there are just in North America, these facilities don't have the capability of storing power. If it's not needed at that point in time and the wind's blowing, that's wasted power. The sun's shining. Soluna can go in behind the meter. They partner with these companies. They're able to get access to otherwise useless power that would be wasted. And now with this partner level project financing, they just need to cookie cutter replicate this with as many of these projects as they can find. So really like that approach.
Renewable.
For sure. And John, actually, I think he said they're going to focus on, as a goal, converting 300 megawatts per year out of their pipeline. So that's a really nice, tangible number for investors to model and base projections off as well. Now, another company involved in the HPC space, Sam Tabar has expressed concern a number of times that the stock really isn't getting the share price appreciation they should. However, today, Bit Digital moving up in a big way. Really nice to see, as this company has a lot going for them, and we feel very excited about what Sam's put together there.
Yeah, we do. Sam's been on the channel. I think he's been on the channel, more times than most of the year. I think he's done at least 5 visits this year. So we get regular updates from Bit Digital, and rightly so. I mean, they're a Bitcoin mining company with about 2.5 exahash of operational hash rate. So not the biggest amount of hash rate, but a good amount of hash rate, probably $40 to $50 million a year. And they were the first mining company to announce what I'd say was a significant HPC deal. And they announced it after they got the client. So they didn't announce they were moving into the space. They didn't announce when they bought the machines or bought the facilities or leased everything. They announced when they got the client. So they came out all guns blazing. I think it was initially about 35 million a year of annualized revenue with the client. Well, that's changed since then because they're already above 50 million of annualized revenue. That's due to go to 92 million. And there's now discussions about whether to increase the GPU power for the next amount of GPUs that are going to be brought into that contract. So I think the client will be looking to for Bit Digital to get the H200s because they're obviously a more later model, and so that's probably going to take a few months. So certainly before the end of the year, I'm assuming they'll get to that target there. But they've got a second client now. They've got a gaming company, and that's potentially, although it's quite small, it's got the potential to be absolutely enormous. So, it can go anywhere from a few million up to $700 million of annualized revenue. So that can be really scaled up. And so from Sam's position, you can sort of understand his frustration. He's got a company there that's doing, over $100 million of revenue. They've got an enterprise value of about 300 million today, with the stock price increasing. And if you look at the sort of like, to deliver 100 million with a 300 million enterprise value, that's a significant amount of revenue for a company that size. So not fully getting recognized, but we've noticed this last day or so they've started to eke out. They still need a long way to go to get to their high this year, because they did rally earlier in the year, like most of these mining stocks. But it's nice to see the rally today, and hopefully we'll just get a further update on the clients and those new GPUs coming in to get that extra revenue coming in there. So been very positive. All their revenue streams that they do deliver great margins, and they are sort of like the asset light company in terms of they lease their facilities. They've even leased the GPUs, and so they're providing a service and they all get revenues, and there's a margin to make on everything they do. So hats off to Bit Digital. Certainly, growing organically well, and looking at the HPC side. And Sam's actually said if the company doesn't get recognition in the future, he might spin off the HPC and set up a separate company, because he feels they're not getting recognition. Maybe it's the recognition that CORZ Scientific have been receiving of late. And if you look at CORZ Scientific in terms of their market cap today, That's at 3.2 billion. Look at CleanSpark, it's at 2.3 billion. So there's $900 million between CleanSpark and CORZ Scientific. If you look at Riot, that's at 2.2 billion. So there's $1 billion between Riot and CORZ Scientific now in terms of how the market look at these companies. And then you've got Marathon at 4.6, nearly 4.7 billion. So 1.5 billion more to go. And we only talked about CORZ Scientific growing into that second spot just a few weeks ago when they overtook CleanSpark and Riot literally in the same week. And you can see how quickly they've grown from then. And I'm saying, you know, that 1.5 billion will start getting eaten into quite quickly as each day goes by, because people start to realize how good that contract is. And we need Bitcoin price to really get well above 130, 140,000 before the mining stocks can start to be appreciated in the same way that the HPC side's appreciated.
Sure. That Boosteroid deal you're referring to, Anthony, is massive. And for those of you who haven't heard of Boosteroid before, like myself, that's actually the third largest cloud gaming company in the world, behind two of the hyperscalers, I think Microsoft and maybe one other. So that's a big deal. That could scale up to 700 million. And you're right, Anthony, if those type of top line revenue numbers start coming in, Bit Digital definitely looking interesting at these levels. Now, with that being said, Anthony, two other key stories we want to cover today. News from Hut 8 Corp and from Gryphon. So maybe we'll finish off there. I'll let you walk through Hut first.
Yeah, so interesting enough, you know, Hut have made an announcement, and they've announced a partnership with Bitmain, the mining supplier, who are going to launch an S21, a next generation machine with a direct liquid to chip cooling. So that's going to benefit the type of environment that Hut need for their hosting and for their, if they want to extend the option to their self-mining business. Now, these are going to be scheduled for deployment effectively during Q2 of next year, and approximately about 15 exahash hosting agreement. And they've actually got an option to increase that, which could then scale the self-mining hash rate up from 5.6 exahashes at the moment to about 20.6 there. So another sort of like 15 exahash there. And, you know, this custom design allows for, you know, a high density deployment, while the hosting agreement minimizes any upfront costs and offers, you know, a fixed, you know, purchase price option as well. So good update from Hut today. Obviously, the time is still in, you know, quite a bit of a delay there till sort of, you know, second quarter next year. So, you know, we're talking between April and June next year. But yeah, it's progress, and we've been asking the question about machines, and it looks like they've now got a contract to deliver those machines. So watch this space for further updates on Hut.
Yeah, I'll be interested to learn more about the technology of these chips. The liquid cool is definitely something that's interesting. We had Rousseau on the channel talking about the benefits of immersion and talking about liquid cooling, and chips are being liquid cooled as well. So a lot more details there, and we may need to get one of the immersion experts back on to talk us through those details, Anthony. And to finish things off today, Anthony, we have a leadership change from Gryphon Digital Mining. So I'll let you finish up with that press release.
Yeah, so Rob Chang, the previous CEOs, he's put out a note today to say that there's been some developments at the company and some change in leadership. Rob's going to stay on the board, and obviously they remain, you know, committed to the strength of their partnership. And they've got this pipeline of 500 megawatts of low cost power. So, you know, that's a good thing that they've done this year. But we're still waiting to see, in terms of, you know, growth in hash rates or growth in company size, not happen. But they've brought in two key personalities to the team. They've got Steve Gutterman as the chief executive officer and Jimmy Vaipoulis as the chairman. So two more people added to the company, added to the board there. So that strengthens the board. Rob will stay on the board as well. And, let's hope we can get the likes of Steve on the podcast to give us his thoughts, his strategy. He's obviously got that background in operational expertise. I mean, remember, Rob himself was a finance guy. He was CFO at Riot Platforms in the early days when they were literally just kicking off. And so maybe they're looking now, Gryphon are looking now for that sort of expertise in the operational side of it. And they brought in, two key appointments today. So good news for Gryphon Mining. And hopefully we can get Steve on the show and he can give us an insight to what he's thinking about.
Certainly. Yeah, that'd be great. And interestingly enough, we've now seen a number of leadership changes, Anthony. We had Jamie Leverton replaced by Asher Janut, Jeff Morphy being replaced by Ben at Bitfarms, and now Rob Chang being replaced at Gryphon. So in addition to the M&A activity we've seen this year, also seeing quite a number of changes in the C-suite or CEO position as well. So a number of key stories we're keeping an eye on this week, Anthony. Overall, a very positive day for the sector. Hopefully you guys are in the green. Feel free to smash the like button if you're making some money today. Subscribe to the channel if you're not already, and feel free to leave a comment in the section below letting us know how you're feeling about the Bitcoin mining sector overall, your outlook for the price of Bitcoin in the final few months of this year, and these company-specific news stories we covered in today's video. That's all for now. We'll see you here tomorrow morning.